Hi there, my name is Memo, this is my channel Houseplanty Goodness, and essentially it is a place where I like to talk about my big passion, which you might be able to see around me, it's tropical houseplants. So for today's topic, what I want to touch on is something a bit more general than us actually specifically looking at one plant, and I want to talk about plant death. Bit of a morbid subject for today, but we've just had Halloween, I thought it might be appropriate. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with a lot of the times. And actually, for people that are starting off and you see people like me basically with big collections of plants and everything is growing happily, do not assume for a second that we have not all had our fair share of plant deaths and we've lost plants and we've cared for them the wrong way. I probably wouldn't be able to even count how many plants I've lost along the way in my journey to learn how to care for them properly. And let's touch on that really quickly, shall we? So I'll be very honest, and again, I'd encourage everybody else, if you've got your own experiences, do share it in the comments down below. I'd love to have that conversation and see what people have struggled with, maybe what plants people have also killed off. Some of it might be similar to mine. So for instance, I'll give you some examples. The two types of plants that I generally struggle to keep happy are ferns and calatheas. Both of them can be quite tricky. Ironically enough, especially based on the fact that I'm a bit of an overwaterer and a bit of an overcarer, I think a lot of the times the struggles that I have with those plants is the watering, because they are very water hungry, or they're very specific about how and when to be watered. So the best thing you can do is turn that negative experience into something positive. So use the experience that you've had by that plant dying into something that could be quite positive. So I'd encourage you all to look back on the care that you gave for that plant and really evaluate where you think what you were providing that plant caused a decline. Was it even something that you were causing to the plant, or was it a bit of a lost cause to begin with? So I'll give you an example of that. For instance, if I had a fern and I pretty much treated it like a cactus or a succulent and let it dry out every single time between waterings, and that fern then basically died off because it just wasn't getting the consistent watering, it wasn't staying constantly moist in its soil, that is something that I possibly caused with the care that I was providing it because I wasn't providing the care that it needed. Now in this case, if it's something that you think that you've caused, I would encourage you to go online. There's loads of websites, there's loads of blogs, there's YouTube channels like mine and a lot of other people's. Go on Instagram as well and have a look and see how other people care for that plant that might have perished. The other example then is it actually something that you've caused, or was it a bit of a lost cause? And I know it sounds a bit harsh, but let me give you another example for that. Say you've ordered something from a grower halfway across the world and the plant comes to you and it's lost all of its leaves and it's had root rot and it's gone through a lot of stress of getting to you. Sometimes you will just lose plants because there's not enough energy in that plant, or it might already had a disease before you even got it, or anything like that, that it basically puts you at a huge disadvantage. And even people that have cared for that type of specific plant for a very long period of time could have potentially still lost it, not because of anything you or they have done, but because the plant or whatever was left of that plant matter, it might have just been a stem or a node, didn't have enough energy in it anymore to survive. And the same thing goes, obviously that's an extreme example of something arriving to you and it's already declining, but it could be something along the lines of you bought a fully healthy plant and it already had a disease, or it had pests and all these things. There's only so much you can do. There is always a tipping point where you might not be able to save that plant. Now in the case of pests, if that is what is causing the plant to decline, there's also a point of knowing when you need to give up in order to save the other plants in your collection. So let me give you another example again there. If you've got a plant that you've been trying to treat because it's heavily infested with something like spider mites or thrips, but it doesn't matter what you do, it just keeps multiplying and it's becoming more and more of a heavy infestation. If you then have that plant near other plants, that could then also go towards the pest could also go to some of your other plants in your collection, it could also lead to another heavy infestation. So there is a point where you need to decide, even maybe before the plant has actually died, on whether or not that plant is even salvageable. And also the risks that might come with that plant infecting everything else in your collection, and then you've got a bigger problem. So sometimes you might kill off a plant, or basically give it to the great big compost bin in the sky, essentially, and just kind of do it that way. Be careful, obviously, with what you're putting in the compost bin. Pests probably would be okay, especially if there's going to be more compost going over it. If it's something like disease, be careful, because then you're going to be using potential compost that might have disease already on it, on your plants. So slightly different situation. Pests might be okay. If it's something like a fungal infection, even potentially root rot, I would not put that in the compost bin. I would just put that in a garden waste bin or a regular bin, just because you don't want any of that passing on to anything that you might be using the compost for at a later stage. Same thing goes as well, and let's talk briefly about something like disease or fungal infections or bacterial infections and things like that. If it's really heavily far gone, some of the bacterial, some of the viral infections, and also some of the fungal infections, they can spread to other plants quite quickly. Usually, a lot of the time, unlike pests, it can't move on its own. You would be the one touching something that's infected or something that's not well, and then touching other plants, and you might be the carrier in that case. Just be very careful on when you're handling plants that have got issues, basically, and make sure that, even as a fail-safe, just wash your hands. If you've touched something that's struggling in one way or another, wash your hands before you touch anything else, just to kind of make sure that you're not causing further damage to your collection. And yeah, just don't beat yourself up about it. A lot of people, we've all been through this, and we will all keep going through this. I'm under no illusion that I'm not going to lose any more plants. And give me a second, I'll show you. So I had this plant that has recently died off. I need to deal with it. I still haven't dealt with it. I need to do that. But this was Calathea. It was being grown in Lechuza Pond with a water reservoir at the bottom of it. And just to be clear on this one, I've grown the same plant. There's a few of the same variety right next to it in the same growing conditions, and they're growing fine and they're thriving. This one just didn't do well. And my consideration for this one, again, when you start thinking, and the more plants you lose, the better you're going to be able to, or faster and better actually, you're going to be able to figure out what might have caused the problem. This plant had a very small amount of stem on it and a very weak root system before it even went into the pond in relation to its other counterparts that are growing and thriving right next to where it used to be. So to me, that might say that, you know what, the next time I'm going to try doing like this, I might give it a bit more of a stem, so it's got a bit more energy in that stem, maybe a couple more leaves rather than just the one leaf, and I'll probably let it root out a bit more before I move it into pond. And again, that might not work, but it gives me a plan of action of something that I can try differently next time round to see if that will help for this not to happen. And if it does, great, I've learned something, so I know what to do for the next 50, 100 times that I'll do the same thing. If it doesn't work, then I'll go back to the drawing board and try to think what else might have been causing it, and then adjust accordingly. But essentially the point of this video is, don't beat yourself up about it, learn from it, and basically improve your plant care because of it. And that's what most of us do all the time. But yeah, hopefully you've enjoyed. Hopefully I shall see you here again soon. And yeah, I truly hope that you have a great rest of your day. Thanks. Bye.